The year was 1925, the UK's most popular film, The Lost World. Expeditions. Dangerous expedition to impress the woman he loves. To prove the existence of living Lord John Roxton. They travel deep into the jungle. Dinosaurs still roam. They also encounter ape men and Challenger proves his discoveries with undeniable evidence. Characters. Professor George Edward Challenger, an energetic British soldier. His hairy, burly body and his thick beard are a source of humor in the story. At the Daily Gazette of Irish background, an athletic rugby player. Who is skeptical of Challenger's claims. Lord John Roxton, a white game hunter, an opponent of slavery. Gomez, brother to an enslaver whom Roxton killed. Manuel Gomez's friend. Zambo, South American black man loyal to the explorers. Gladys Hungerton, Edward Malone's love interest. Jessie Challenger, Challenger's wife, who deplores his belligerent behavior. Maple White, deceased explorer who discovered the Lost World. The Akala Indians, the native human inhabitants of the Lost World Plateau. The Lost World is a science fiction is a genre of speculative fiction which stereotypically deals with imaginative and futuristic concepts such as advanced science and technology, space exploration, time travel, parallel universes and extraterrestrial life. Can explore science and technology in fiction novel by British writer Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sir Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle was a British writer and physician. He created the character Sherlock Holmes in 1887 for A Study in Scarlet, the first of 4 novels and 56 short stories about Holmes and Dr. Watson. The Sherlock Holmes stories are milestones in the field of crime fiction. Published by Hodder and Stoughton in 1912, concerning an expedition to a plateau in the Amazon. The Amazon basin is the part of South America drained by the Amazon River and its tributaries. The Amazon drainage basin covers an area of about 7 million square kilometers, 2,700,000 square miles, or about 35.5% of the South American continent. It is located in the countries of Bolivia, Brazil, basin of South America where prehistoric animals still survive. It was originally published serially in The Strand magazine was a monthly British magazine founded by George Newnes, composed of short fiction and general interest articles. It was published in the United Kingdom from January 1891 to March 1950, running to 711 issues, though the first issue was on sale well before Chrism. Strand magazine and illustrated by New Zealand-born artist Harry Rowntree during the months of April–November 1912. The character of Professor Challenger, George Edward Challenger, is a fictional character in a series of fantasy and science fiction stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Unlike Doyle's self-controlled, analytical character, Sherlock Holmes, Professor Challenger is an aggressive, hot-tempered, dominating figure. Was introduced in this book. The novel also describes a war between the Americas. Indigenous peoples comprise the 2 continents' pre-Columbian inhabitants, as well as the ethnic groups that identify with them in the 15th century, as well as the ethnic groups that identify with the pre-Columbian population of the Americas as such. Between indigenous people and a vicious tribe of apes are a superfamily of Old World simians native to sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Apes are more closely related to Old World monkeys than to the New World monkeys, Platyrini, with both Old World monkeys and apes placed in the clade Catarrhini. Apes do not have tails due to a mutation of the TBXT gene. Ape-like creatures. Frontispiece image from the 1912 edition of The Lost World, showing the fictional members of the expedition from left to right: Guy Malone, Professor Summerlee, Professor G. Challenger, Lord John Roxton, Challenger was disguised as Conan Doyle himself. Edward Malone, a young reporter for the Daily Gazette, is given a dangerous assignment by his editor to impress his beloved Gladys, who wants a great man capable of daring deeds and deeds. His task is to contact the notorious Professor Challenger, who strongly dislikes the popular press and physically attacks intruding journalists. The subject is his recent South American The direct approach would be immediately. Upon meeting the professor, he is shocked by his formidable. Challenger has really figured out the disguise. And forcibly throws him out. However, Malone earns his respect by refusing to press charges. A police officer is a warranted law employee of a police force. In most countries, police officer is a with a policeman who saw his violent ejection into the street. South America is a continent entirely in the Western Hemisphere and mostly in the Southern Hemisphere, with a following up an expedition by a now-deceased The United States of America, USA, primarily in North America. It is a federal republic consisting of 50 states. Washington, D.C. The 48 contiguous states border Canada to the north and Mexico to the south, with the state of Alaska forming a southwestern state. This American explorer named Maple White. At a tumultuous public meeting in which Challenger experiences further ridicule, most notably from a professional rival, Professor Summerlee, Malone volunteers for an expedition to verify the discoveries. His companions are to be Professor Summerlee and Lord John Roxton, an adventurer who helped end slavery on the Amazon, the notches on his rifle showing how many slavers he killed doing so. View of the plateau that isolates the lost world. Running the gauntlet of hostile tribes, the expedition finally reaches the lost world with the aid of indigenous guides, who are superstitiously scared of the area. Summerlee retains his skepticism despite being delighted at making other scientific discoveries in the fields of botany and entomology. Even a glimpse of a pterodactyl at a distance fails to convince him, because he believes it is some species of stork. The sharper-eyed Roxton is inclined to agree it is not a stork but has no clue what it really is, until a nighttime encounter when it flies down and is seen by all at close range as it steals the companion's dinner. After this, Summerlee apologizes to Challenger. The group explores the entire base of the plateau to find a way to the top and discover that a former route up is now blocked by a rock slide. They also encounter human bones at one spot at the base of the cliff, identified as James Culver, Maple White's companion, who it would seem somehow fell to his death. With the cliffs to the plateau apparently unscalable, an adjacent pinnacle is climbable but separated by a wide gap. Challenger determines that a tall tree on the pinnacle can be cut down and used as a bridge, which allows the four explorers to cross over to the plateau. However, they are almost immediately trapped on the other side, thanks to the treachery of one of their hired porters, Gomez, who, as it turns out, is a former slaver whose brother had previously been killed by Roxton during his anti-slavery activities. He takes his revenge by dropping the tree off the cliff, stranding the explorers on the plateau. Roxton shoots Gomez and they hear the scream and then the thud of the falling body. The other guide is subsequently killed by another porter, a formerly enslaved black man named Zambo, who remains loyal to the party. But the latter is unable to do much more to help, other than send some of the company's supplies over by rope. The group encountering Iguanodon, the central lake on the rookery swamp of the pterodactyls. The explorers investigate the wonders of the lost world, discovering many plants and creatures thought to be extinct, including iguanodons. They narrowly escape an attack from pterodactyls after the party comes upon a rookery around a swampy pit in a former volcanic blowhole, guarded by the larger males. Although barely escaping with their lives, Roxton takes great interest in nearby blue clay deposits. Pterodactyls attack the explorers. Illustration from French serial version 1914. At night, a ferocious megalosaurus is about to break through the protective fence of thorn bushes built around their camp. Roxton averts disaster by bravely dashing at it, thrusting a blazing torch at its face to scare it away. The night after, Malone studies fauna near the central lake, including a stegosaurus. He barely escapes a megalosaurus and falls into a deep pit dug to trap and impale animals. Professor Challenger's life spared because of his resemblance to the king of the ape men. Illustration from French serial version 1914. After climbing out of the pit, Malone returns to the camp to find the others missing and signs of a violent attack. He contacts Zambo but receives no clue to what exactly has happened. The following morning, Roxton arrives after escaping the race of ape men that captured the party one night previous. While in captivity, they discovered that a tribe of indigenous people with whom the ape men rifles to mount a rescue of the hairy creatures. Professor Challenger apparently the king of the ape men, and tries and he and Malone fire repeatedly, prevent Indians is a young prince of the tribe and the surviving tribe member, slaughtering all the adult males, with most being driven off the cliff. After witnessing the power of their guns, the tribe wishes to keep the explorers on the plateau. During their time with the tribe, Roxton plans how to capture a pterodactyl chick at Challenger's request, using a protective wooden cage against the adult pterodactyls. Wanting to leave and return to civilization, the explorers are helped by the young prince they saved, who gives them a crude map of the caves in the hillside near the tribe. With the map, the explorers are able to find a tunnel leading back to the outside world. They escape by night, descending on a rope. Upon return to England, despite full reports from Malone, many detractors continued to dismiss the expedition's account, much as they had Challenger's original story. Although Summerlee, having been on the expedition, has now switched sides and is supporting Challenger. Anticipating this, at a public meeting at Queen's Hall, Challenger produces the young pterodactyl as proof, transfixing the audience and leaving them in no doubt of the truth. The explorers are instantly feted as heroes, and on a wave of adulation find themselves carried shoulder-high from the hall by cheering crowds. The pterodactyl, in the confusion, makes its escape and is witnessed several times at different locations around London, causing consternation wherever it goes, but is last seen heading off to the southwest in the probable direction of its home. At a private celebratory dinner, Roxton reveals to the others that the blue clay contained diamonds. He had been tipped off to the possibility by the recollection of a similar feature in South Africa, and managed to extract about £200,000 worth, £23 million in 2021, which is to be split between them. Challenger plans to open a private museum with his share. Summerlee plans to retire and categorize fossils. Malone returns to his love, Gladys, hoping she will recognize his achievements. Instead, he finds she has now changed her mind and married a very ordinary man instead, an insignificant clerk. Astonished at this turn of events and with nothing to keep him in London, he decides to accompany Roxton back to the Lost World, which the explorers earlier had named Maple White Land, in honor of the American who found it. Prehistoric animals encountered. Iguanodon, large plant-eating dinosaurs. They looked like monstrous kangaroos 20 feet in length and with skins like black crocodiles, treated like cattle by the tribe of Indians living on the plateau. Unidentified theropod, large meat-eating dinosaurs that Challenger and Summerlee debate if Megalosaurus or Allosaurus. Oddly described as, in shape they were like horrible toads and moved in a succession of springs, but in size they were of an incredible bulk, larger than the largest elephant. Their blotched and warty skins were of a curious fish-like iridescence. Stegosaurus, armored plant-eating dinosaur, sketched by Maple White in his notebook, sighted by Malone near the lake at night. Pterodactyls, pterosaurs or flying reptiles. Challenger and Summerlee debate if Pterodactylus or Dimorphodon. Plesiosaurus, long-necked swimming reptile seen on the shore of the lake, much to Summerlee's delight. Ichthyosaurus, fish-like aquatic reptile caught in a net in the lake by the tribe. Megaloceros, described as a huge deer resembling the Irish elk, but without using a scientific name. Glyptodon, described as like large armadillos, but without using a scientific name. Toxodon, described as a giant 10-foot guinea pig with projecting chisel teeth. Phorusrhacos, a giant flightless predatory bird called Phororhacos, that chases and attacks Challenger, killed by Lord Roxton, who takes the skull as a trophy. Apemen, anthropoid apes covered in reddish hair, described as an advance upon the Pithecanthropus of Java, and as coming therefore nearer than any known form to that hypothetical creation, the missing link. References in other works. Main article, Lost World. Wallace Beery as Challenger in the 1925 film. In addition to lending its title to this subgenre. Citation needed. The title of Doyle's work was reused by Michael Crichton in his 1995 novel The Lost World, a sequel to Jurassic Park, and its film adaptation The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Greg Bear's 1998 novel Dinosaur Summer is a sequel to The Lost World, set in an alternate history 1947. In the context of Bear's novel, The Lost World was a non-fiction work published by Doyle as recounted to him by Professor Challenger. References to actual history, geography and current science. Map of Maplewhite Land. The characters of Ed Malone and Lord John Roxton were modeled, respectively, on the journalist Edie Morel and the diplomat Roger Casement, leaders of the Congo Free State Reform Campaign, the Congo Reform Association, which Doyle supported. 1. In 1911, just when Doyle was writing the book, Casement made a second such anti-slavery reform campaign in the Amazonian part of Peru. It is possible that Malone was also based on Bertram Fletcher Robinson, a close friend of Doyle's, because like Robinson, Malone was raised in the West Country, exceeded 6 feet in height, became an accomplished rugby union player, worked as a London-based journalist, and he loved a woman called Gladys. 2. Doyle was aware of his good friend Percy Harrison Fawcett's expedition to the Huanchaca Plateau in Noel Kempf Mercado National Park, Bolivia. Fawcett organized several expeditions to delimit the border between Bolivia and Brazil, an area of potential conflict between both countries. Doyle attended Fawcett's lecture to the Royal Geographical Society on 13 February 1911 and was impressed by the tale about the remote province of Caupolicán, present-day Huanchaca Plateau, in Bolivia, a dangerous area with impenetrable forests, where Fawcett saw monstrous tracks of unknown origin. Fawcett wrote in his posthumously published memoirs, monsters from the dawn of man's existence might still roam these heights unchallenged, imprisoned and protected by unscalable cliffs. So thought Conan Doyle when later in London I spoke of these hills and showed photographs of them. He mentioned an idea for a novel on Central South America and asked for information, which I told him I should be glad to supply. The fruit of it was his Lost World in 1912, appearing as a serial in the Strand magazine, and subsequently in the form of a book that achieved widespread popularity. A 1996 Science Fiction Studies review of an annotated edition of the novel suggested that another inspiration for the story may have been the 1890s contested political history of the Pacaraima Mountains plateaus, and Mount Roraima in particular. 6. In a world forgotten by time, in a land untouched by civilization, they discovered what mankind thought was lost forever. Dinosaurs, still breathing. Apemen, still surviving. Danger, lurking in every shadow. Professor Challenger sought truth. And what he found, changed history. A tale of science, of bravery, of disbelief turned into reality. But the real question remains. How much of our world is still unexplored? How many lost worlds are still out there, hidden, waiting, watching? The expedition returned home, but they were never the same again. They saw the impossible. They survived the unimaginable. And they proved to the world that legends, sometimes, are real. The Lost World isn't just a place on a map. It's a reminder that the unknown still exists. And perhaps, the greatest discoveries are the ones we fear to chase. This was not just an adventure. It was a journey into the heart of forgotten time. They went searching for proof. But what they found was beyond imagination. Ancient creatures roamed as if time had never moved. Roars echoed through valleys untouched by man. They faced not only beast, but the primal fear buried deep in every human heart. In that forgotten land they fought for survival. They saw death in its rawest form, and life in its oldest shape. Some believed they were mad. Others thought it was just another tale. But those who witnessed it knew the truth could not be denied. The jungle keeps its secrets. The plateau guards its monsters. And yet, one truth escaped. A single photograph, a single story, a single roar. Enough to shake the world's beliefs. Enough to challenge science itself. And enough to remind us that the past is never truly gone. It's just waiting to be found. If you enjoyed this journey into forgotten times, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories, ancient mysteries, and cinematic adventures. Because the world is full of mysteries, and we're just getting started. Like what you saw? Then subscribe now because more lost worlds await.